Well, hello illustrators. Today is our very last lesson in Illustrator, and it's going to be on advanced illustrations, and it's actually going to be a little bit easier. You just have to follow some basic steps, and we're going to do a little bit of reviewing. So let's go ahead and get started by opening up Illustrator, and you're going to open up one of my files. We're going to go to File, Open. It's in the Courses, Art, Print Shop, Templates, and from here I want you to open up the Advanced Illustration file, and it should be this image here with two artboards and some pictures. So stop the video and find this file now. All right, let's save this in the cloud in your lessons folder, and I want you to call it with your name, first name or last name, and then Advanced Illustration, and click Save. All right. I know the pen tool is not a lot of fun, so we're actually going to jump right over the pen tool. We're going to skip it, and we're going to use the pencil tool or the paintbrush tool just like we would the pen tool, but it's going to be a lot easier because we're not setting points, we're just drawing more fluidly. So if you don't already have the drawing tablet out with a stylus, I would recommend that for this video lesson. All right, so we're going to still trace, we're still budding illustrators, so it's okay, we're students. If you were to do this as a profession, you probably wouldn't want to do this quite the way we do it. You get into a little bit of trouble with some copyright issues, but for us it's okay. And most of us are probably going to use some form of this on our poster, our last project, which is the poster illustration with the buttons and the stickers, just because it speeds things up a little bit. It makes things a lot easier, so you have more time to do the fancy stuff, the texture and adding patterns and all of that good stuff. All right? So the first thing we're going to do is I want to take down the transparency of these images so that it's a little bit easier to see our line work on top. So we're going to select all three of these objects. The easiest way to do that is to grab your selection tool and just click and drag across your objects so that we've selected them all at once. And we need to open up the transparency panel. And we're going to take our transparency or the opacity down to about 60%, somewhere around 60. Just makes it so it's a little bit see-through. They're not quite as contrasting. So stop the video and do that now. All right, the next thing we're going to do while we have them selected is we're going to lock them. So let's go to Object, Lock, Selection. Remember, that just makes it so we can't accidentally click on it. It's kind of glued down for a second. We can always release it later, and in fact, we will. All right, so the first thing we're going to review is we're going to review joining a line. So we're going to zoom in on our apple. And I want to grab the paintbrush tool. I want you to set your fill to none. And I want you to put your stroke as a contrasting color. So I'm going to pick a yellowy orange color. And I want you to watch me do this first, and then I'm going to show you what happens. So I'm going to outline my apple. All right. But I want you to make sure that it doesn't touch all the way. Right? I want you to have a little bit of a gap there. So stop the video and do that now, and while you're doing that, I'm going to edit my line a little bit here. Maybe a little too much. You know what? I'm just going to leave it. All right, I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so joining. What this does, so I can fill this. Even though I didn't join it all the way, I can put a fill color on this, right? But if I look closely, notice the line, the outline isn't all the way there. Okay? If I want to join this 100%, I need to select my path or my object and go to Object, Path, Join. So I want you to do that. I want you to set a fill color that's contrasting your stroke, and then I want you to join because I want to see that line connected all the way through. All right, so stop the video and do that now. All right, we're going to do that again. I want to grab the paintbrush tool, set my fill to none. Oops. And we're going to go around the leaf. This time, I want you to try to cross all the way back so they touch. Stop the video and do that now. Okay. Again, we're going to fill it a different color. But I want to show you something. We're going to go to View, Outline. So I want you to notice, if you zoom in, even though it looked like I overlap my lines, they're not truly connected. Even though they looked like it, they weren't truly connected. I'm going to go back to my view preview. So you can kind of see here. I'm going to move those back. So even if it looks like they've overlapped, you still need to physically join them. So let's do that. Let's select our leaf, object, path, join. All right, we're going to lock this selection. We're going to lock our leaf because we're going to draw on top of the leaf here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just draw some detailed lines in here. So let's change our color again. I'm going to set my fill to none and my stroke to a contrasting color. I want to take my brush size down a little bit. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to draw a line down the center. And then I want you to draw some center points or some center lines radiating out from the center. Okay, we're going to object unlock all. And we're going to zoom out. Let's go ahead and select our apple image and we're going to delete it. From here, I want to show you just a couple other things. We're going to zoom in on our apple again. I'm going to show you what happens on connecting the paths if your end and start point don't connect completely. So we're going to, again, select our apple and we're going to lock this just because it makes it easier. I want you to grab your brush tool again, contrasting color, and we're going to drag and create kind of like a highlight here. So if I drag a highlight and I'm like, oh, my highlight kind of looks like this. So drag kind of a squiggly little highlight. If I join this now, I just want to show you what happens. If I join this, if I go to Object, Path, Join, notice it connects my paths, my end and start, the quickest way possible. So you want to make sure if you're going to use this method that when you draw, your starting and stopping point should probably be pretty close. Otherwise, it's going to join it in a very odd way. Object, path, join. And that's okay. And then I want you to fill this a highlight color. Last thing we're going to do here, we're going to unlock all. So object unlock all. We're going to select all of that stroke color. So this was, I used the same orange, so I'm going to go up select, same fill and stroke. So it should select all of my orange lines if I have done the same one. Oh, you know why? Because I used different ones. So we're just going to do stroke. Object, select, same stroke color. There we go. And I want to change that color. I'm going to make it a, no, I'm just going to stick with the blue. I like the blue color. All right, so stop the video and do that now. All right, let's blur our, let's just review a little bit. We're going to review some of our options here because we're getting into advanced effects. Let's blur this blob highlight shape. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to Effects. We're going to go to Stylize. And let's go to Outer Glow. We're going to change our color. Let's pick kind of a white color. Make sure your preview option is checked. You can take your opacity up or down. I can blur it more or less. And I'm going to click OK. And then I want to take that stroke off of there. So stop the video and do that now. I'm going to make my fill color a little bit lighter. I don't like that. I think that's a little too light. That looks better to me. So now we've got a glowing highlight. Click on your leaf. We're going to go up to Effects again. We're going to go to Effects. We're going to go down to Texture. And let's go to Texturizer. And let's see if that gives us, yeah, that gives us a nice texture effect. We can even scale it up or down if we want. And click OK. All right, I think that's enough with the apple. So that's a quick review of joining your lines. makes things pretty simple. However, that still took a lot of time because we had to do the leaf and then we had to do the apple. What if I just want to do it all at once? So let's go ahead and we're going to click on our fish. We're going to lock it again. Let's zoom in. Whoa, I zoomed in too much. And we're going to trace our fish. So we're going to grab our paintbrush tool. Make sure that you have a very simple, oops, I'm on. Flip this. Okay. Make sure that you have a very simple line brush. So go back to your basics. Make sure you have a basic brush set. Let's take our point value down to 0.5, contrasting color from our fish. And then we're going to outline. We're just going to trace. I'm not going to worry about making my lines connected or all the way around. I don't have to go all the way around the fish. I'm just going to kind of focus on each section. I'm going to retrace all of the interesting lines I see here. I do want to make sure that my lines touch. Okay, that's very important. I want to make sure that my lines touch. I can have open-ended lines, but if I know I want like a shape, it needs to touch another line. And you're going to see why that's important in just a little bit. So you can skip ahead if you want to, but we're going to go all the way around our fish. Notice I'm picking my brush up. It's okay. You can pick your brush up as much as you want. Just make sure that your lines do connect or touch other lines if you want to be able to fill in an area. Okay, while I'm at it, I can even trace some of my detail line work. I'm going to go ahead and do that in there now. Just on just the fins. I don't want you to do the scales. Just put in some of the lines that are on the fins. You can do a lot or a little. It's up to you. We're just speeding up some of that time that we would take tracing every single one of these things. Just going to make it a little bit faster. All right, I think that's enough lines for me so that I think you guys get the point. All right, the last thing we have to do here before we start to merge these, because we're not going to join these. This would be a nightmare to try to join all of this stuff because we get weird connections of endpoints because we got a bazillion different starts and endpoints. And if we tried to join this, we would get zigzag. And in fact, you know what, I'll just show you what that would look like. So if I went to Object, Path, Join, notice, yeah, we can't join this. That's not going to be possible. But there is a way we can merge these things. All right. Before we can merge it, though, we have to make sure that our lines cross. Okay. If our lines have gaps, this isn't going to work because it won't close that in. So the best way is to go up to View and go into your outline mode. Because now if you zoom in, you can see where I've got some gaps, and you want to make sure that you fix those. So the easiest way is to literally just grab the anchor point and make sure it touches another line. So I'm going to go through any place I've got a gap. I'm going to close those things in. I'm going to let it touch another line. Super important. I got lots of gaps here. Lots of them. And it's hard to see when you're drawing. You think you've got them all. You think you've overlapped everything, but you really haven't. These ones, they don't have to touch because they're just gestural lines. But if I know I want to fill in a shape, I've got to make sure those all touched. So I'm just using my scroll and I'm going through. Lots of gaps. I'd get really frustrated if this didn't work later. You especially want to make sure that you've got no gaps where there are different sections or different parts. All right, I think that's pretty good, and if it's not, that's okay because it'll show you what happens if you don't do this correctly. So we're going to zoom back out. Let's go back to our preview mode. So View, Preview. All right, so here we go. This is really simple. There's really only there's 3 steps you have to remember, but it speeds everything up. So the first thing you do is you select your lines. You're going to go to Object, Expand Appearance. So basically it's saying, hey, this is going to be a complex single object here that we're going to make one big object. Okay, so stop, expand the appearance. Now we're going to open up a new panel called the Pathfinder panel. It's a lot like the Shape Builder tool, but a little bit more complex. Okay, so with our new expanded appearances, we're going to click on the Merge button. It's not necessarily going to look like anything happened. However, if you click and look closely, it's one fluid line. It's all one big object, okay? But we're not done, because if I try to fill this, there's nothing there. I can't click and fill, okay? It's blank. This is just an object. It's literally just a line. But if I want to be able to fill in here, I'm going to show you a really, really cool trick, all right? So we've merged our lines. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a rectangle tool, and we're going to just change a contrasting color. And to be honest, guys, it does not matter what color you use. We're just using it to create a fill, okay? And then we click and drag over our fish. Stop the video, do that. And then you're going to right-click, arrange, send to back. You're just putting that behind the fish. Now we're going to merge this purple shape with that green shape, that green outline shape. So we have to grab our selection tool, and you have to select all of those objects again. So the purple box, or whatever color your box is, and your line drawing of your fish. And then we got to go to merge again. Now this is one big object that's grouped with several different complex. So then to do this, to make colors changes, we're going to right click and ungroup it. Now if I deselect everything, now I can select an individual. So I can click on the outline and delete it. I can click on the body. And now we're going to go ahead and color our goldfish. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to select some multiple things to speed up my time. Oops, I grabbed my outline. Now I'm cheating because I'm selecting one purple and I'm going select the same fill and stroke. See that? I'm just speeding up my time. That's all I'm doing, guys. Speeding up my time. You can change your line color if you want. Ugh. All right, we have a decent looking fish here. He's not too shabby. All right, we're gonna lock all of him because now we're gonna do some detail work. So we're gonna object, lock, selection, and now I wanna drag and create some scales, but I'm gonna try to do that with a different shaped brush. So I'm gonna grab my brush tool. I'm gonna set, I want a nice pretty highlight color. I'm gonna go to my yellow. I wanna grab a different shaped brush. I'm going to open my brush library. I want you to just grab whatever kind of brush you want. I just want to get a different kind of a brush here. Yeah, not those. That's not going to work. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm going to grab that brush. I think that'll be good. I'm going to put some scales on my fish. Okay, so put some scales on your fish with an artistic brush. We're going to select all of those, so either by holding on the shift key, or I'm going to go to select, same, fill and stroke. It just makes it a little bit easier, and we're going to take the transparency of that down a little bit. So it just blends just a little bit. All right, now if you want to add any extra other details to your fish, you can. Let's zoom out. We're going to select our fish. Yep, we need to unlock him, so object, unlock all. We're going to select the fish photo, and let's go ahead and delete that. We're going to select all of our fish here, and we're going to add a drop shadow to them. So let's go up to Effect, Stylize, Drop Shadow. Click OK. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to grab the ellipse tool, and I want you to make some blue bubbles. You can make blue bubbles of varying size. You can change the color. So stop and make some bubbles. All right, we're gonna select our bubbles. We're gonna go up to Effect. Let's go to Warp. Let's go to Bulge. And we can try to distort our bubbles a little bit if we want to. So we've got some weird shaped bubbles. If you feel so inclined and you want to add a little highlight to your bubbles, you can do that as well. All right, so now we're going to move on to Mr. Rudd over here. Now we're really going to get into this thing. Let's click on his photo. Let's lock it. We always want to lock that selection. Let's reset our brush. We want to go back to that basic brush size. So I need to flip these first. Sometimes it won't let you change your brush if you don't have a stroke on it. So I'm going to go back to my very basic brush size. I want to go down to size 0.5 or even lower. Again, keep a contrasting color. I'm going to go with a dark red, dark pink, red, whatever. Let's take our fidelity down just a little bit. So the fidelity, remember, is how smooth Illustrator makes your lines. I want you to double click, and I want you to make sure it's set at about 25. Okay, by default it's probably set at 50, and click OK. And then we're going to just outline all of them, including the parts where you have to close everything in. So when you get to his hair, and I'm going kind of fast here, you need to kind of guess at what the top of his head would look like. And again, remember, you don't have to make sure that you're using the same exact, like you don't have to outline everything, but you do have to make sure that your lines cross another line, because if we want this to fill in. So I'm going to go kind of fast here. And I'm going to do all the major outlines. I just realized I still have a weird shaped brush. It went back to my default for some reason. Hold on, I'm going to drag that. Okay, there we go, that's better. And I'm going to outline all of him. I like a nice small brush so that way I can kind of see if I'm closing everything in. But I'm going to outline all the major shapes on his body. So I'm going to outline his head. I'm going to outline his ears. Again, making sure things overlap. I'm going to outline the outline of his eyebrows. Making sure my lines overlap. The outline of his eyes. The inside of his eyes. It keeps defaulting to that silly brush. Sometimes it just does that. I don't know why. It just keeps it's just like it doesn't want to move on. Okay. Make sure I got it. It did it again. Click up here. There we go. Let's write that way. My line got too thick again. Okay. And it's okay if you have different shaped lines. It's going to make it look different, but it still will work, even if your lines aren't all uniform. I want mine to be uniform, though, because it's going to drive me crazy. You take your time, as much time as you need to do your outlines. When you get down to the neck and shirt, you need to make sure that you close it in. So I don't mind if you're just listening to this while you're tracing all of your objects, but notice, make sure that you've got to close in that bottom. If you just leave the bottom open, it won't color in. You can add extra lines if you want to, but we got a basic tracing. All right, so when you have a basic outline of him, I want you to think about a couple things here. So what I like to do is, before I get too far into adding my color and stuff, I do like to look and see where the differences in values are in the face, and kind of like coloring book style kind of trace around those. So like, see how it's a little bit darker here? I'm going to suggest you outline the shadow. So you see how this is darker? So any major shadow area you have, I would kind of outline it a little bit. So right here in his nose area, this gets a little bit darker. It looks funny while you have the lines, but trust me, once we add the color and stuff, it doesn't look quite as weird. If you want to do like his crow's feet and his laugh lines and stuff, you can go ahead and do that now. You can have open-ended lines. Don't do the fine lines on his eyebrows yet. Don't do his eyelashes. Don't do all that little detail work. You're just doing like the major areas of color. It's got a little shadow under here. You can even kind of go through the highlights where the hair is. I'm like, okay, he's got a big chunk of hair here that's a little bit lighter. Same with here. I'm just dividing up the hair into chunks, which if you're doing an illustration, you're going to want to figure out how to break up your image. I'm even making extra lines. You're going to see it's going to create some problems when I go to merge and stuff, but that's okay. I'd rather have too many lines that I got to make corrections to than having gaps in my lines. All right, I think that's pretty good. All right, so stop until you have this, what looks like he went to a plastic surgeon and got drawn all over. But, so we've got our tracing done. If you are unsure if you've got everything closed in, again, go to that outline mode so you can kind of see, making sure all of your lines are connected or overlapping. So let's select all of our lines. We have to expand the appearance. So Object, Expand Appearance. Now we're ready to merge it in the Pathfinder. So I got to open up my Pathfinder panel because I accidentally closed it. I'm going to merge those. Which I lost some of my lines. I have a feeling it's because I had different line qualities. Yep, I think so. So I'm going to quickly, if that happens to you, I'm going to quickly change everything so I make sure they're all the same. And then that should work. So I'm going to expand the appearance again. And I'm going to merge. Okay, now it worked. So expanded the appearance and I merged. So that was good. I like when I have issues because you guys get to see how to fix those. So I've merged them. Deselect. I need to grab a box with a different color. Don't care what color. We're going to click and drag over the whole thing. You have to make sure you cover up all the lines. Send it behind. Select all of them again. Merge. Ungroup. Delete your blue box. All right, the next thing we're going to do is I want to unlock that picture of Paul Rudd and we're going to move him over to the right. So stop the video until your file looks like this. We don't need the Pathfinder, so we can close that. All right, and we're just using this to sample. So we're going to click on the image of Paul Rudd and let's take our opacity all the way back up. Now, the reason I like to go to a thinner line, I had to go to the thicker line just to make, I was going fast, guys. That outline can be kind of too thick. If you use too thick of a paintbrush when you start working through it, you're going to have some issues with having that super duper thick outline. That's why I like to use a really thin brush, like 0.5 or less. Okay, so you don't have as much of an outline. All right, but let's go ahead and start coloring this. I'm going to grab his skin, but to change it, I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool and click. So notice what I'm doing. I'm just selecting, like I want to click here and here. Grab my eyedropper tool, and I can actually use that area to highlight it. So if I want to click on his hair, maybe I want to click this, 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 this. It just speeds things up a little bit. I have a feeling I had an open line. There we go. So we're getting there. I'm going to show you one quick. Most of them is kind of a pale color, so I'm going to select same, fill and stroke. This is where these shortcuts come in. They're really, really nice and easy. So I'm going to pick a basic color. So at least I have them, because most of it's going to be flesh color. Now I can just go through and change. It makes it a little bit easier. Zoom in where you need to. I want to get rid of all my pink lines. I want to make them all that brown color. So I'm going to, again, select same, fill and stroke. I want to change it to a darker color, like I want to outline with this color. That's his iris, so we're going to go black. I might have to zoom in tight. So this is, for me personally, I think the lines are were probably too thick. This is his iris color, so if I want to zoom in over to his eye, sample, see how that looks. That's pretty good, not too bad. All right, so stop until you've got a nice illustration here. All right, and then from here, we're just gonna add some highlights. I'm gonna show you some, I'm not gonna show you, I'm just gonna review with you how I would approach adding texture, adding line work, and most all of that I would do with my brush. Before I do that, I would probably lock my selection again. I do lots of locking and unlocking so they don't accidentally grab stuff. And then I would experiment with as many of those brushes as I can. And that's where I'm going to start adding my texture. And I'm just drawing on here. Might now try to do his eyebrows a little bit, using a texture brush to do it. I can blur things, so if I want to blur, oops, let's unlock this. Let's click on the tip of his nose, or underneath his nose. And if we go to that blur effect, you can blur different objects so it kind of softens things a little bit. So you can kind of see how it blurs. You can even blend a little bit more if you wanted to. If I wanted to take that paintbrush, make it darker. I can do another outline and blur that. So I'm just kind of showing you effects that you can do. Or if I can even put on top and layer. If you want to add highlights in his eyes, I'm going to put a little highlight in both of his eyes. Just a little highlight. All right, so you've got some texture in the hair. You try to do some shadow work either under the nose or maybe over here. Okay, that's bothering me. Oh, I didn't close that in. That's why that didn't do it. So if you have an option or an object like this that didn't close in, your only option here is to fill it in by hand then, or go back and redo all of your appearances, which I don't want to do. To me, that's crazy. So I would probably just take and paint that in with a better brush though, not that brush. I would take more time, but you get the general idea here, okay? So when you're done, you should have some version of Paul Rudd. If you want to change your line work, you can change your line work, but that's pretty much it. You expand your appearances, you merge your lines, you put a shape behind it, you merge the shape. And then it just makes it a lot easier to add your color. Okay? Now you're ready to get started with your final project. Have some fun with this and good luck.